Welcome to all of our folks who are joining us. You're going to notice that you are muted. That is intentional. We will let you all unmute yourself during our breakout rooms, but please, please, please feel free to participate in the chat room. Say hi to each other. Feel free to introduce yourselves. Let us know your name, your pronouns, where you're based, what co-op you're with, or what member organization you're with. Yeah, and we'll be getting started in just a moment.
Hi, welcome everybody. Bienvenidas a todo el mundo. We're going to explain how to do connect to your language interpretation line. Vamos a explicar a todo el mundo cómo conectar a la línea de interpretación. Maddie, whenever you're ready. Okay. I'm going to be giving this message in English and Spanish. Voy a dar este mensaje en inglés y en español. Tenemos hola, soy Kate, soy coordinadora de membresía aquí con la Federación de Cooperativas de Trabajadores en los Estados Unidos. Bienvenidos a todo el mundo y gracias por apartar un rato de su día para estar aquí con nosotros en esta reunión. Entonces, esta reunión va a ser bilingüe y tenemos la función de Zoom de interpretación y dos intérpretes aquí con nosotros de la cooperativa de intérpretes en Madison, ayudándonos con la interpretación. Si se quieren conectar a la función de interpretación para escuchar, van a ir hasta abajo en su pantalla donde ven un globito. Van a hacerle clic al globito y van a hacerle clic al idioma que prefiere escuchar durante la reunión, que sea español o inglés. Si están conectando a través de la aplicación en su celular, ustedes van a hacerle clic también a través del globito o a través de los tres puntitos que ven y van a escoger ahí su idioma inglés o español. Si en algún momento tienen algún problema con encontrar esa función o la opción de interpretación, nos pueden mandar un mensaje por el chat y les ayudamos a conectarse. Voy a repetir ahora este mensaje en inglés, pero cualquier pregunta que tengan, aquí estamos para apoyarles y pueden mandarlo por el chat. Y gracias y bienvenidas. Entonces, hi everybody. My name is Kate. I'm the membership coordinator here at the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. Today's meeting is a bilingual meeting, and we have the Zoom interpretation feature available in English and Spanish. We also have two amazing interpreters here with us today from Interpreters Cooperative of Madison. So if you would like to utilize the interpretation services, you can go down to the bottom of your screen where there's a little globe, and you can click that globe and select the language of your choice, English or Spanish. If you have any questions, if you don't see that option, if you need anything throughout the meeting, feel free to let us know via the chat, or you can send me a direct message on the chat and we'll help you troubleshoot any issues you have with the interpretation. This is for both English speakers and Spanish speakers because we'll be presenting content in both languages today. Thank you and have a great meeting.
I think I'm up. Hey, everybody. This is Ricardo Nunez. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, awesome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm just going to welcome y'all. Thank you for participating in our membership meeting. It's really important for us to have the active participation of our members, since we are the only national organization, membership-based organization supporting worker cooperatives and democratic workplaces. So thanks for joining and helping shape the future of the Federation, and to get the updates about your U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops. So today, what we're going to talk about, we're going to have some reports. We're going to let you know about the finances of your organization. We're going to talk about membership growth. There's been a lot of exciting updates and growth. We're going to talk about worker benefits. So those benefits that you might have seen in your email inbox from the Federation about dental or vision and all those other things. We're going to talk about endorsements. So the Federation has been actively working to get policies at the national, state, and local levels to support the growth of worker cooperatives, but we also want to be supporting our movement allies. And so we're going to have a space to talk about campaign endorsements, policy endorsements, and that type of thing as we are developing internally the process for membership participation and how staff are going to be able to do that moving forward. We'll also have a little storytelling space from our members. I know that doing this work every day, it can feel a little like I'm either alone, especially now with being still sheltering in place in the Bay Area. And I love hearing the stories from our members. So we're gonna have a little bit of that. We'll also hear about co-ops during COVID. A report was just put out by the Federation. It's only 4 pages long. I'd recommend you all checking it out. Then we'll have some about how worker co-ops have been faring during COVID. We'll also have some small group discussions where we'll break out and be able to talk with each other and participate in some conversations and bring some questions up and respond to questions. We'll have some strategy updates. We're gonna do some recognizing because y'all are amazing. And so we wanted to lift up some members and some cooperatives that have been just phenomenal in the last 2 years, and we wanted to raise up those folks. And then we're going to talk about elections, I think the elections for regional representatives, and just remind everybody to vote and share some of the candidate statements at the end of our meeting. So that is what we're going to be working through today. Yeah. Next slide. Here's your existing board members of your U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. And the regional elections that you all will be voting on are your Western Regional Representative. Right now, that's me. The Eastern Regional Representative. Right now, that's Imrana Sufi. Your Northern Regional Representative, Flecker Rivera, is currently holding that position. And then the Southern Regional Representative, currently held by Anna Boyer. Yeah. I think that's, yeah. Oh, and the amazing staff. Oh my God, y'all. Okay, this is amazing. When I first started working with the Federation a few years ago, there was literally half a staff member doing all of this amazing work. Now there's a whole team coming together and pushing forward technical assistance, support for our worker co-ops, policy advocacy, membership engagement, strategy planning, aligning with other movements, benefits. It's so phenomenal. I'm constantly honored and impressed by all the work that the Federation staff is doing. And as a way to acknowledge them and the amazing work that they have been doing, I'm going to drop a little link into the chat right now. It's a kudos board. And if you want to do a shout out to all the staff or any individual staff, please feel free to click the link. I'll share it again later today and add a little shout out, a little gratitude, a little appreciation to the board because they are phenomenal. Okay. So just want to like recognize
Wow.
that.
Coming in hot with the surprises. I thought we were all coordinated, but you guys always have something up your sleeve on the board. Thanks so much, Ricardo. Hi, everyone, and you can move us on to the next slide. Because we're going to spend a moment on finances, and part of the way the member meeting is going to flow is we have a little section on reports. So I'm going to talk about finances. Ana Martina is going to talk about, is going to deliver the membership report. We're going to hear updates on just one program in particular, which is about our workers' benefits, and then we'll have time for questions. So we're holding about just under 10 minutes for questions after that whole section. So you can either put your questions as you're thinking of them in the chat, and some of our board will maybe hold those and spit them back at us when it's question time, or just make some apuntes, some notes for yourself, so that when we get to question time, we can hear those at that point and address them. And as part of that, we're more than happy to sort of slow down or go back to a slide that we might have covered already if your questions was about some of this stuff. So with that said, we do like to start with finances and just a bit of a look at the state of the Federation, starting with our resources and money. And I wanted to start with our gross income because it does tell the same story as the last slide of our staff growth. Actually, do you mind, Maddie, going back one slide for just a moment? Right, so that story that Ricardo was just telling about the development and the capacity of our staff over the years. I've been the executive director for 5.5 years now. I think it's exactly my 5.5-year anniversary, actually. And when I was hired on, there were two of us, and that was 2015. So you can sort of see, going back to the finances, the corresponding development and just capacity of the organization. We hit for 2019 just under $500,000. We're already on track to surpass that this year in terms of our gross income. Our expenses pretty much match with that. I mean, we run a pretty tight margin here at the Federation for investing whatever additional resources we land into programs and TA, some regranting, and staff capacity. So that's where we were at this year compared to the other years. Next slide shows you a comparison also of the last 6 years of our expenses. So pretty similarly, again, we tend to pretty much balance our budget every year. And as we'll talk about in a moment, even for 2020, we're not planning on having to go into the red or dip into the reserves that we've slowly just started to build up in the last couple of years. So yeah, our expenses were about $450,000, which meant that some of that surplus when we closed out 2019 really just rolled right into 2020 for our cash flow. Some of it, though, was put aside as for our operational reserves, which we're trying to develop. Next slide. Cool. So I know that Ana Martina is going to talk about our membership in a different sense: growth, recruitment, numbers, number of members. I just wanted to give you a sense of, membership dues are one of the drivers of our budget. We'll look at a pie chart in just a moment, but to get a sense of how much of our budget is directly from membership dues. But that, again, that longer arc comparison over the last, 7 years of how much you all have contributed in membership dues. Some of this is reflective of recruitment. Actually, a lot of it is. Some of it also, though, is a reflection of not just retaining certain members, but the growth of member co-ops. So because our dues are tied to the size of your staff or the rate of your payroll, if you give yourselves pay increases, if you hire more people, if your businesses are successful, that gets reflected there's a bit of a lag there, but it does get reflected eventually in our finances year after year. So that's why we're all in this together. You know, we're invested for 1,000,001 reasons in helping you all grow and thrive. And it's also reflective of the co-ops that maybe started as members in one category, like as a startup co-op, that have maybe become a fully launched democratic workplace or worker co-op. And in the process of doing so, as they then grow, I mean, my own co-op, Aorta, is an example of this. We joined probably in 2013 as a startup and then didn't incorporate until 2014. So some of the growth of our business over the years is actually in lockstep with what you're seeing here in our membership dues. So this past year, we did come in just under $100,000 in membership dues. Of course, some of that we have discounts that aren't reflected there in partnership with groups like PACA here in Philadelphia or with No Boss out in California. Some of it is also reflective of dues splitting, which we do with the Valley Alliance of Worker Cooperatives in Western Mass and with NICNOC in New York City. So what you're seeing here is the amount of dues dollars that we actually retained and not just what we collected, okay, which actually was above a little over $100,000. All right, next slide breaks down within the various membership categories what this looked like. Again, we for 2020 will tell you a little bit about what the membership looks like. Next year's annual meeting is where you'll see our 2020 finances around member dues collected, because of course we haven't closed out the year yet, and we've still got some dues income flowing in. But this gives you a sense. We are overwhelmingly driven by that first and founding category, which is worker cooperatives. You'll see it dwarfs the other membership categories, although we have seen pretty significant growth in some of the newer categories. I mean, we didn't have a conversions membership class back in the day. It was just, you had to figure out some other bucket to fit into. Federation partners, right, which are networks of cooperatives themselves, didn't have its own sort of dues status or class. And so that's all new. And we have seen that start to grow and develop over the years, which is helpful to see. Yeah, I think I'll leave that there and see what kind of questions might come up in a moment. And then the last two slides I have for finance are, one is just a look at our budget for this year. Now, the board approved this budget in January at our annual retreat, our board retreat, and we didn't have any sense of what was in store for this year. One of the things that we did know was going to be different compared to last year is that in 2019, it was the Federation's first year running the regional conferences ourselves. So we took over stewardship of the Eastern Conference for Workplace Democracy and also for the Western Worker Co-op Conference. We actually put two of those on the West Coast, in Olympia and in San Francisco last year. And then we had an ECWD in Baltimore a year ago. So all of that stuff those finances are actually reflected on our books for 2019, which is again part of that growth that you're seeing. For this year, though, a lot of our board considered making some budget amendments given how the year has unfolded. But it turned out we were actually able to stay pretty much on course with the budget. There were certain categories that shrunk or were smaller, whether it was on the income or expense sides of the balance sheet. And so we were able to sort of match those things up. If we had increased costs for some of our, I don't know what actually increased, if we had reduced income for certain programs, we offset that by slashing our travel budget or not planning on having an in-person board retreat or even a staff retreat at the end of this year, for example. So we've mostly been able to stay on course. This pie chart was to give you a sense of the diversity of our income streams, our revenue streams. They're kind of, most of the diversity is in these smaller slices that are about 2%, 2 to 5% of our budget. Everything from sustainers. I see actually a lot of our sustainers in the meeting today, so thank you. We love you. It's significant. That's a significant slice of our budget there, that periwinkle color. And then, of course, we've increased our consulting over the years. For 2020, we had budgeted that to be about 13% of our budget. The largest category this year was grants at about a third of our budget. And that's new because typically we receive grants through partnership with organizations who bring us in as a subcontractor for a grant that they land. So that would normally show up under our consulting or some other aspect of our pie chart, like the orange one, our memorandum of understanding with the Democracy at Work Institute and some of the grants that they receive that they re-grant to us, and we help to meet some of their deliverables. So that was a little different. We will talk at the very end, I think, of our business agenda about the Freelancer co-op project, which is what a lot of that grant was for, but at least a third of it was set aside for just our overhead. We also had support not only from the Center for Cultural Innovation out in California to run that Freelancer project, but also from Chorus Foundation, which was dedicated for some of the capacity building and operational costs that we have on staff. So that's why that's reflected so significantly there. And then of course our membership dues, just under 20% of our budget there. So it gives you a sense of that. Last slide for finances before I hand it over to Ana Martina. Just some of these bullets that I'm assuming maybe answer some of the questions. These are the ones that I anticipated about, like, what's going on? What's up with the Federation's finances this year, given what calamity the crisis, both of the pandemic and of the recession, have been. One is that we have been grateful for the ongoing support of Shared Capital Cooperative to have access to a line of credit. When we invoice and collect dues, the renewal period, that's really concentrated usually in maybe like a 3-month period of time where that money is coming in. And that does not start on January 1st. So it's very helpful for us at the very beginning of the year, during the winter months, before our programs are really up and running, collecting registration fees and things like that, to have a bridge loan or a line of credit to float us, because most of our expenses are consistent month to month. We, like many of you, received a PPP loan, which really helped us stay on track. That's part of why we're in good shape this year. I already mentioned that we slashed our travel budget. We anticipated one of the shifts from our budget to our actual finances this year was we were like, oh, who knows what's going to happen with some of your businesses. And so we anticipated a loss of dues. We've actually managed to, and there was some, which is why we ran that small donor campaign to make sure that we could recoup some of that cost. And basically we've been able to stabilize. It's been very good. We also slowed down the dues invoicing, the renewal period in the second quarter, and kind of pushed that to the third quarter to give people time. I mean, we hadn't even known how the Small Business Administration loan programs would have unfolded. So that was, I think, actually helpful. That's the feedback we got from many of you, that it was helpful to have enough time to say, like, are we reopening? Are we are we furloughing ourselves? Are we temporarily closed? What do our finances look like? Are we shifting our business plan? We didn't feel comfortable invoicing you until the dust had settled on that, at least enough for you to be like, what is even happening? Okay, now let's see what we can do. Yeah, and then lastly, just that running those regional conferences was helpful. I mentioned we had 2 worker co-op conferences on the West Coast. One of them lost a tiny bit of money, but not much. The other one basically broke even. And the ECWD was profitable. And actually closing out the finances for that program is going to be reflected on our 2020 books. So that's a little bit about the financial state of the Federation this year. I'm going to kick it to Ana Martina. And again, let us know what kind of questions you have for the end of our report section.
Gracias, Esteban. Voy a cambiar
De
para
nada.
español en el idioma.
Perfecto.
Bueno, gracias y bueno, un placer estar con la membresía el día de hoy.
It's been a pleasure to be here with the membership here today.
Vamos a ir al paquete que
We're
compartimos.
going to go to the packet that we share with you over mail. It's been placed on the chat section. There is a section for the membership so that you can review some of these documents, including like finances and some other stuff about membership. Every year when we have our business meeting about membership, we review the finances and we check the growth of the membership. Madi, if you can go up there, a little up on the website. What you are seeing on the screen right now are the logo of the new members this year. Really, it hasn't been an easy year to plan, to know what's going on, but we were surprised that last year we had nearly 50 new members that joined the membership, and this year we have gone over that number, over that 50 number. So what you are seeing in there are the logos of some of the new members that joined this year. And it has been surprising to see how, facing the crisis, COVID crisis, many businesses are transitioning into a model of co-op, of worker co-op, and also some organizations are trying to enter into co-op development. What we are going to see right now is a little bit the map of the different regions that are represented in the Federation. South, East, West, and North, with different colors. And if we go to each different tab with membership, we are going to see where our membership is distributed. We can see like bigger dots in there, which means that there are the numbers of our membership. And we can see in more detail if we go to the recruitment tab, where the biggest growth happened this year.
No es una sorpresa, pero bueno.
It hasn't been a surprise, but it's important to know how in some of these regions that we know that there is capacity to support the support for cooperative subject. We need to advocate for that, to be able to have access to those resources and also to have the experience to support the businesses so they can like educate themselves inside the cooperative movement. This is in the website, so you can go there and explore it. Mo shared that with us. If we check that, we are going to see what the composition of the membership is. As I said before, as Esteban said before, most of the membership in the Federation is composed of worker cooperatives and next like startups, co-op startups, which was a pretty big growth this year in the development of cooperatives. And then what we have seen in the growth is the growth of allies with the Federation. We can see in different colors. If you can, like Madi, if you can jump, we can see where those co-ops are based. We can see New York, Massachusetts, California,
en DC, Maryland, ¿no?
DC, Maryland. And again, it's interesting to see where these co-ops are based and what are the ecosystems that are around these co-ops. If you can go to the recruitment tab,
Esto representa el
this you
crecimiento.
can see like the growth of membership this year, just in 2020. This year we saw a big growth in startup cooperatives and also in the incubators, co-op incubators. The growth in worker cooperatives represent co-ops that maybe skipped a year in our membership, or maybe some other co-ops that finally joined the federation this year. Again, we can see the growth this year, which is very interesting because we have seen that there are many more businesses that are gravitating around the co-op business model.
Estamos
If we
viendo
go into the developer, cooperative developer, we can see that in regions that we have not seen before, we have seen growth in Michigan, Tennessee, Illinois, that we are seeing some organizations that are starting up, that grow inside the cooperative model to support other businesses. If we can go to the other section, which is industry, in this graphic that Mo prepared for us, here you can see, you can check this later to see which industries we are represented more clearly. You can see like a service industry, technology co-ops, the cleaning services, like food and beverages, and we can also see in much more detail what has the recruitment has been this year. The page is available for you, and you can explore at a later time, because I believe that each one of you would like to check in more detail, especially those people who are working in the cooperative development. So this is just the recruitment for this year, with the number of cooperatives that we closed 2019. This year, we nearly reached 300 memberships in the federation, which is an amazing number. Obviously, this has been a year that we have observed this growth in new members, but we have also been paying attention, specific attention to work with cooperatives and members that were already part of the federation. So this year, in the renovation project, we have worked very hard to have a very direct communication and to get to know how the COVID and also other changes that we have seen that have impacted our communities, how they are like changing our model. Kate, I don't see you around. Do you want to share a little bit what?
Sí, el trabajo uno a uno, ¿no?
The direct work, the individual work that we have been supporting technically, everybody. Yes, I know we are some kind of short in time, but I would like to share a little bit what my experience has been with the support of membership this year. The response of membership has been just amazing in regards to joining during this crisis. Instead of like disappearing in the middle of what's in our plates, we have seen how the membership has been gotten more united and has been in very much communication, asking for help, taking advantage of the resources we have been offering and offering their own resources. your local and community resources, like sharing their stories in their fields. And through, I know many of you have been checking the webinars and all the trainings that we have offered, and the people who have been given those presentations is our membership, all of you. We have seen like many examples of mutual support in our communities, and it has been, we have been strengthened our community and our federation. I realize that many of you have realized that I am the person who is like bothering you every year around the spring, asking you to renew the membership. And this year we have seen that the answer has been like beautiful, in the sense that the renewals, the organizations, the co-ops that has been like receiving their funding, and even their business have grown because of that, and they have taken that a step forward to give something extra in their membership to support the co-ops that have offered the honesty and transparency to say that they were not able to pay their memberships this year. There has been a symbiotic relationship among the membership to make sure that everybody is part of the federation going forward. Obviously, many of the co-ops that have suffered more are the ones that are like co-ops from our migrant and color communities that are in the front line and are essential workers. We have seen, especially like cleaning co-ops, that the clients are moving away from cities due to the pandemic, and they don't have as many clients that they had in the past. We have seen many changes, and it's the time to stay together. And we are just like here for you, any question you may have. And we are here always just to see how you can renew your membership and to keep an active membership in spite of this situation. That's all I would like to share. Thank you, Kate. I think we are going to talk about benefits. So we'll probably be changing into English.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Maddie Tatarka. I am the Worker Benefits Coordinator here at the Federation. And so the Worker Benefits Program is a way that we've created for our members to have greater access to different kinds of health-related benefits. So as you can see here, we currently offer dental and vision insurance, accident and disability insurance. We also have some opportunities to get general medical insurance in some states, as well as options for tax advantage plans, such as health savings accounts, health reimbursement arrangements, and flexible spending accounts. This is a really important time of year for the Worker Benefits Program because it is our open enrollment time, which means that it's the time that any of our members, whether they're longtime members or brand new members, can enroll in our dental and vision plans, as well as our accident and disability plans. Our other programs are available on a more rolling basis. But as you can see here, from October 1st until December 9th, so we're right in the middle of it, now is the time to be thinking about and taking the steps to enroll in our dental and vision insurance plans, and also our accident and disability insurance plans. Our dental and vision program are national networks that are available to every member organization in all 50 states. They're available to our worker co-ops, as well as other democratic workplaces and associate members. And basically everybody in the Federation gets on one group plan, and that way we can leverage our numbers to get good rates. And so down here, I just want to highlight that currently we have about 450 people enrolled in the dental and vision program. In the lifetime of this program, going on about 4 years now, we've had served 677 people, and currently we have 38 organizations enrolled. So we're looking to expand that enrollment. We're trying to bring up our numbers by 50% this year, and we think that that's going to help us improve our rates and benefits over time as well. It's the kind of thing where strength in numbers can only benefit. We also, so to that end, we've got our worker benefits website here, which includes information about all of our benefits. Goes in pretty in depth on rates and information. Also on that page, you'll find information about the office hours that we have coming up. Our first one is next week on October 21st from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern. So anyone can sign up to come and ask questions and get sort of a little bit deeper of an overview. We also have an office hours coming up in November. In addition, we're going to be presenting a webinar in Spanish for our worker benefits program geared towards immigrant co-ops and creating a space where people can ask questions directly about how these benefits can support immigrant workers in our community. And yeah, we also, we have some webinar recordings also on our webpage that you can take a look at if you want to see if maybe someone's asked your question before. But I'm here, my role at the Federation is to both help extend these benefits and make sure everybody knows about them, and to support everyone in educating themselves, their members, as well as supporting with the administration. So any questions, you can always reach me at benefits@usworker.coop. And yeah, now is the time to be thinking about getting set up on these benefits and getting started. So thanks so much.
Yeah, as we transition to questions, I just want to lift up that Maddie's position is brand new. I think strategically it was on our wish list for a long time to have somebody who could focus on this area, not just for the administration, but a lot of what you're seeing, which is research and development about collective bargaining and access to these kinds of insurances that we can only really get at a cheaper price point by coming together underneath the umbrella of the Federation. And none of this was funded by grants, like not a dime of it. This whole position is funded from you guys. This is what dues dollars go toward, is just setting up that infrastructure. So as we, toward the end of the meeting, we'll talk a little bit about some of the strategic direction that the Federation's moving into. It's exactly that kind of thing, keeping that approach in mind, which is that as we grow, we have more capacity and resources to invest in or learn about or test out various strategic areas, even if there isn't a funder or a grant or somebody who is incentivizing us doing so. So that's exciting. Okay, what kind of questions? Who's fielding the questions? Am I doing that?
I was. This is Ajaka.
Oh, great. Welcome. So Ajaka is another one of our new staff members this year, new staff position.
Yes, I am.
You just got muted.
I'm muted.
Also, your video is not working. There you go.
It is. Sorry. There weren't that many questions in the chat that have not been answered in the chat as well. If people do have questions, please put them in the chat and we can fill them now. But yes.
Cool. Well, maybe if folks are still percolating on some questions, I can move on to the endorsement section, and then we can run back to any questions that y'all have as we continue through. So let me see. Matt, if you don't mind sharing your screen again, that would be great. So as I'm sure all of you know, it has been a real roller coaster of a ride over the last couple years in terms of policy and advocacy work for the Federation. We have been working nonstop in terms of like working on federal legislation and education, state work and local work, all with the involvement of members at all the different levels, especially the local. And you know, we've done a few endorsements. We've kind of like dipped our toes into that world. And that includes, you know, we co-signed the Movement for Black Lives platform. We joined the fight for a moratorium on rent and utilities during COVID-19. We've signed on to several things to fight for immigrant rights and fighting ICE. And then at some of the kind of like regional and more local levels, we've worked in tandem with the Work Coalition, the Worker-Owned Recovery Coalition, I think, in California. And the New York State Equity Agenda and the Alliance for Just Philadelphia in Pennsylvania to get connected to the work that our members are doing at the local levels. So it's been really exciting, and it's also really clear that we need to create the structures and make sure that all of you know how you can be a part of those efforts. So what you're seeing on the screen here is kind of like our workflow that we want to introduce. And there will be plenty of time to look at this. You'll get these slides after the webinar. I know it's, all this is a lot to take in. And then I also want to promote, we're having a worker co-op advocacy update call that is going to be offered in English and in Spanish on November 12th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I'll stop there. So we'll have plenty of time to dig into this, but I'm going to walk you through it really quickly. So, so what we're looking at right now is we have been doing these endorsements and supporting different efforts in tandem with the board. So the staff has been working really closely. It's primarily been me kind of like sending issues or maybe things from the International Council or things that the staff has picked up to the board for approval, for discussion, for vetting, and that has worked pretty well. We want to expand that pool and make sure that all of you know that, you know, some of these conversations that have been happening. I think if you are attuned to the Policy and Advocacy Council, then you've heard about these things, but if you haven't, we want to make sure that you know all about it. So so there's a couple different routes we're working on right now. So first, we want to understand what we want to like put firm legs on what we as the Federation want to put our weight behind, right? So that's going to come out through a position paper, and I'll use that as the example. This also will apply to different campaigns and candidates and legislation. But the idea is that we already have these spaces where we interact with all of you, right? So I see people from all of these councils, the Policy and Advocacy, Racial and Economic Justice, Immigrant Council, and the Union Co-ops Council, the International Committee, which is right now mostly our board members, and our Federation partners, which are our local connect. So the idea is that anyone from any of those councils, anyone in our membership can bring an issue through one of these councils or to staff for vetting. So what we'll do is we'll get a submission, we'll vet it through our councils, depending on what the issue is. So if it's an issue about immigration, it'll run through the Movimiento de Cooperativas, de Inmigrantes and Cooperativas. And if it's something that, for instance, the Black Lives Matter platform, that would go through our Racial and Economic Justice Council. So we're gonna really utilize these spaces to do a lot of the vetting for us. We have a whole rubric that we're working on right now with the board. There's a board committee that has been working on this for the last several months. And then so that's going to be presented to the board. And then the board will be able to do some last like vetting, questioning, flagging concerns, implications, making recommendations. And that will allow the staff to be able to execute the next steps, whatever that looks like. I imagine some of that might be, you know, signing a letter from the staff, or it might be entering a campaign with members. So this is kind of a just a little bit of a workflow. This is all like in progress, and we're going to be talking about this a whole lot more in 2021, but that's a very brief overview that we wanted to share with all of you. And I'll pause right now to see if there are any other questions. Ajaka, did anything else come up while I was talking?
Yes, there was a question, and it was back about health insurance, and it was answered in the chat. But Maddie, if you could just say it, so also our Spanish speakers can get access to that wonderful information. And I'll say the question out loud. So the question was, do we have any general health insurance updates? And are there any new states, including New York, that have those services?
Yeah, so health insurance is definitely a huge area of my research. And I will say it's one of the more challenging areas because of just the complexity of it, both in terms of the regulations on state and national levels, and also just the hold that private insurance companies have on the markets as a whole. Our website, usworker.coop/worker benefits, has the information about the states where we know that we've been able to find optimal rates that would be better than what you might get on the individual marketplace. The question in the chat was specifically about New York, and I can say that I know New York is one of the places where we have not been able to find more advantageous health insurance rates than what you'd find in a general marketplace area. But oftentimes in states where that's the case, a tax advantaged arrangement like a health reimbursement arrangement could be a plausible option depending on the workplace, which is a way to designate money that is for paying for healthcare premiums without that money being taxed, both through income and payroll tax. So I could talk about how bad health insurance options are for a long time, but it's definitely something that we're thinking a lot about and are going to be doing a lot more research on in the new year as well, to see what sort of creative and innovative ways we can come up with to expand those offerings wider.
Why don't we do this? I know that we had a short bio break planned before we come back with stories from members. If there are additional questions, maybe we'll just stagger it so the staff can stick around and answer some of those questions, and we'll take our bio break while you're hearing from members in the member video, if that sounds good. So if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat, or request maybe to be unmuted if you would prefer to ask your question verbally, and otherwise maybe come back at 4. We'll start those videos at 4:05 Eastern, 1:05 Pacific, 3:05 Central, and 2:05 Mountain Time. Great question on voting for regional reps. At the very end of the meeting today, after we do some awards and recognitions, we're gonna actually play some of the videos from the candidates, so you get the chance to sort of meet them, see them. Voting is already open, which Ana Martina just announced in the chat as well. And if you're confused on who the liaison is from your organization, just let us know. Actually, that should go to, I believe, to Ana Martina, right? And we'll make sure that you have your code. And I think we're explaining more to everyone at the end of the meeting about how we use a really awesome, super democratic, instant, single transferable, instant runoff, ranked choice voting algorithm, because it's the most democratic thing and we want everyone to do it. So I'm not going to explain that now because people shouldn't miss that if they're having a tinkle or getting caffeinated.
There's a question in the chat about retirement benefits on the worker benefits page, and if there are any updates.
Yeah, we are in the process of hoping to start sort of maybe some pilots on retirement benefits for our members this year. That's something that, yeah, if folks are interested specifically in that, should definitely get in touch with me at the benefits email account at this point. We're looking into a couple different avenues for that.
Great, and maybe just pop your the proper email for that in the chat. Awesome, figured. Great minds. Esther West, I will admit you, come back in. All right, it's 4:05. Time for stories from members. Is Kate Barut back on the screen and on the scene? Hi. Lista?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maddie,
Adelante.
you're gonna share screen, right? Voy a cambiar al español otra vez.
Finish again.
Which are we starting with?
Bueno, vamos a compartir algunos.
We're going to share a few. We're going to invite some members here from the Federation to share with us.
Actualizaciones sobre el trabajo.
Share some updates as far as the work that they've done this year.
Los levantamientos por las vidas negras
as far as the Black Lives Matter uprisings, COVID, which has affected all of our lives, share a little bit about their jobs, how they've been organizing in their communities in these times of great change and struggle. So first,
la panadería, cooperativa panadería.
We're going to hear from Panadería Cooperativa.
Oregon, Blue
from Astoria, Oregon. It's a wonderful, delicious bakery co-op, and we have a little update for from Blue Scorcher's work situation right now.
My name's Daniel, and I'm a owner of the Blue Scorcher. Blue Scorcher is a worker-owned cooperative that's been around since 2004. We make bread and pastries and serve coffee and food in Astoria, Oregon, out on the far tip of the West Coast. Astoria actually had some of the better air quality in the area, so we actually had a lot of kind of refugees from the wildfires coming in. So we just kept our store open, and we're very, very busy serving people during those times. There's a lot of people had to evacuate, had their whole lives upturned, houses burnt down, and all we could really do for them was to just keep being open and keep making food, and hope they find their way. Our town is kind of a tourist town, and summer is our big year. We were expecting to have like double the amount of cruise ships and overall just a lot more business this summer. And all the money that we make then kind of floats us through the much slower winter. So losing all that summer money and business is really challenging. Like, we may not even be able to be open were it not for the PPP loan that we're currently using to kind of pay our staff and pay our rent. But in the 2 months we've been open since reopening, we're doing good. We're doing better than breaking even if we didn't have the PPP. We're just kind of hoping that we can make it through the winter and that maybe things are a little bit more clear and less pandemic-y next year. And Black Lives Matter, like we hear all the time from people in Portland protesting and getting abused by the powers that be, and just hope that proper leadership can make a change to that, both at a local and national level in the coming election. a big asset of being a worker co-op was just the joyful work that we share together. So even though it's hard times, I mean, we were just reopening, combined with wildfires. A lot of people were put in new positions that they weren't in before. But really, it gave us flexibility so that when there was a lot of pressure on us as a business to perform and pump out food and drinks and everything else, people were flexible and able to move between departments and get it all done in a timely fashion and having a good time doing it for the most part. I mean, overall, I guess we just learned to stick together, have a good attitude, and be open to change. Because lots of things have changed. We expect a lot more to keep changing, and hopefully for the better for a little bit here. Be a nice refreshment. And just keep moving forward with confidence in our vision and in our relationship with each other and our community.
Muchas gracias a Daniel de Blue Scorcher por haberse
Thanks a lot from Daniel to from Blue Scorcher for having connected between shifts. From he's right between where bread is baked at the bakery there. We're gonna pass the mic to a member organization.
La Alianza de Cooperativas del Área de Filadelfia y vamos a escuchar.
The organization is a Philadelphia area co-op developer, and we're going to hear about what she's doing to support the cooperative movement in the Philadelphia area as far as worker co-ops and Philadelphia in general.
Thanks, Kate.
Gracias,
Hi,
Kate.
everyone. Thanks so much for asking me to join y'all and to get to share a little bit about PACA, which is the Philadelphia Area Cooperative Alliance. Again, my name is Jeanette, and my role is Cooperative Business Developer. We are a Black, Brown, queer-led organization working in the region to grow the cooperative ecosystem. We are also a member organization of cooperatives here locally from across all the cooperative sectors, worker co-ops, consumer, energy, all the things. And this year, for us, like so many, it's been huge. We've been able to do so much collectively and as a team of 4. Got 4 folks on staff now. So some of the things we did in May, we kicked off a series on mutual aid in the relationship to cooperative economics. We had over 40 folks from in and around cooperatives join us. And from there, we were able to establish really good relationships with folks who are interested in moving in the housing justice and housing cooperative movement world. Shortly after that, we were able to mobilize members and able to respond to our local city council budgeting process in a big way. Big shout out to Mo. We also pivoted our fundraising this spring to raise money and redistribute to cooperatives and collectives locally. We did this because without our members, who are we? And we are also in the same storm, applying for PPP, having to sort out and govern ourselves, and continuing to focus our love and appreciation for the co-ops here and figure out how to support each other. And like Anna mentioned earlier, people are excited about co-ops and more groups are coming to us and asking to be in community with us. Right now, we're making another pivot to some get out the vote work. We're partnering with the Philadelphia Neighborhood Networks to do a nonpartisan all virtual phone bank. A couple of our policy and advocacy committee members made a voter guide on how to vote safely, etc. And organizationally, we are thinking about contingency plans. What happens October 19th and onward? There's a lot of things going on and we're in our strategic plan as well. So figuring out how we're gonna keep taking care of ourselves and shape what the future of work looks like for all of us in the new economy. So check. Thanks again for having me. And I might have to hop off a little early, but if anybody would like to chat about any of that, I can share my email in the chat.
Muchas gracias, Jeanette, por compartir un poco de lo que ha sido.
Thank you so much, Jeanette, for having shared what PACA is doing a little bit for us. It's been a really great resource as far as organizing co-ops and a great ecosystem in the meantime when we're going through this crisis. So now I'm going to want to pass the mic to one of our partners, Ismael Garcia.
Hope Wheelchair Association.
From Living Hope Wheelchair Association.
la esperanza viva en silla de ruedas, y también es el
It's
nuevo
called Esperanza Viva en Silla de Ruedas. He's also the new president of a recent
para inmigrantes y
commission
refugiados con discapacidad.
of immigrants and refugees with disabilities.
Si nos quiere platicar
So welcome
brevemente
to Ismail. If he wants to explain a little bit
este año,
the activities that he's done this year as far as organizing, struggle during these times.
Ha sido un reajuste de todos nuestros programas.
It's been a big change for all our programs.
También pues seguir avanzando, seguir consiguiendo
And we've had to
más
keep advancing and keep
membresía.
recruiting more membership, more people who would support us. The AVE program, which accompanies and visits sick persons.
Porque antes íbamos a los hospitales.
We had to reform it. We used to go to hospitals because we can't, obviously we can't go now anymore because of COVID. And we're making calls to support really, really vulnerable people so that our program is still moving forward and to help them pass the time in hospitals. If we can't be there, we call to see how they're doing, what their health conditions are, what their needs are. This program has also been undertaken in collaboration with another organization called
Rescue.organization de llevar comida
rescue organization to bring food to 40 families in this area. What they also do, they also do advocacy and try and get community engagement as far as people who need, who are defenseless. To get people out to vote. I'm sorry, the interpreter correct. They also get the information out for census participation and get people out to vote, passing information along in disaster situations. And this program is to make sure everyone stays informed as far as natural changes and issues as far as Hurricane Laura, Emma, Beta, but also through COVID, they've been able to do some fundraising to send more than 200 people back to their home country. To send remittances for 200 families. It's worked really well because they've been able to pay rent. We're also participating in Metro and Metrolinte, which are the main transportation infrastructure around here. We've got them to not be billing us for 3 months as far as what their fees are. As given that there's no work, it's really tough for us to get the money to be able to buy tickets to use the metro. Also, been able by distributing this aid, we've been able to realize that there's a lot of times that we run into things or issues that are very particular. For example, we have an older lady who's got three kids who have mental issues. And for us helping spread out this aid, she was able to contact us and look for more aid because she needed somebody who was able to help her navigate the health system and other resources that are available in our city.
Ismael, creo que de ahí tenemos que movernos y seguir adelante, pero
I think we're going to have to move on from there, Ismael, and keep moving forward. But thank you so much for sharing as far as what your current situation is, what the organization is doing, and the particular support that you're giving to the undocumented communities who are struggling in these times.
Entonces, sí nos podría compartir la
So if you could
información
share your web page in the chat window so that people could see that and visit it. Please share that.
Okay.
Please send us a link in there, okay?
Gracias, Ismael.
Thank you, Ismael.
Ahora vamos a cambiar otra vez al inglés y voy a
We're
pasar
going to
la
switch
voz.
back to English.
Hi again, everyone. So thank you so much to Ismael and Jeanette and Blue Scorcher for sharing your stories. You know, everyone knows that this year has been a really, really difficult one. And one thing that I have been extremely grateful for during this time is how we've taken care of each other and how we've seen co-ops stepping up in this moment. We just got done with a whole webinar series about how our communities have stepped up during COVID. And one of the great things that we have been able to gather during this time is stories and information about just what actually does it look like for us to show up for each other. So you will see in your member packet that we just published a paper. I think Ricardo said earlier, it's pretty short, it's only 4 pages, but it is really impactful. It shows some tangible examples of what people within our membership and outside of our membership have been doing, and to collectivize our power and our efforts right now. So that is a part of your member packet. And I just want to share a few of the pieces of information that we found out over this. And yeah, Ricardo, quality over quantity. It was really beautiful to put all of this together. So I'm really excited for all of you to dig into it and read stories from your fellow worker co-ops. Just a few things that I would really love to lift up is New Day Cooperative Distribution. They're one of the couple of kind of distribution cooperatives that have popped up during this time. New Day is based in the Seattle area, and they had started to think about, you know, what if we did a collective distribution co-op a little before COVID, and then once COVID hit, they had to completely change the business model for the bakery, which is Patty Pan Bakery, and that really pushed the effort like really into the forefront of what they needed to do, and something that we just did a whole webinar on it, so you can find the video on our website. But a few cool things that that I want to share is that they started opening the store. It's an online store where there's small businesses. I think that there are around 30 right now that are part of this distribution cooperative, and there are 2 worker co-ops a part of it, Patty Pan and Equal Exchange. And then there's also just other small businesses that are now learning about the worker co-op model, and they're able to share community with other small businesses, which is really exciting. And so they are they do once a week distributions of everything from groceries to flowers to baked goods to beverages, and they have increased 20 new orders every week since May, which is it's a good steady growth, and it's taken up a big part of their revenue. They're actually they've already had to move once into a bigger facility, and they're getting ready to move again because the operations are getting so big so quickly. So that's something that really inspired me in this time. And then Matt, if you want to go to the next slide. I'll tell you a little bit about some of the statistics that we gathered. All of you probably know that the in between March and like June of this year, we did outreach to all of you. So we got on the phone, we called every single member, and just to check in to see how everybody was doing and to ask a couple of questions. And what that turned into, what we were realizing is we're getting so many good stories. So a few things about what we learned is that, you know, out of much different from most small businesses, our worker co-ops kept the same workforce by and large in this time. And I know we still have a road ahead of us. You know, we're not through and we're not past COVID yet. But it was really, really, really heartening to hear that most of our co-ops kept the same workforce, or they reduced hours, furloughed, and then rehired people. And then there are a couple of co-ops that actually hired workers during this time. So that is something that is pretty starkly different from most small businesses, even when we were gathering this information, you know, over the summer. You can go to the next slide. And I think that's, yeah, okay. So one thing that, you know, we all know that, you know, it's co-op month, and co-ops help to shape democracy. And we all know that having good structures in place for decision-making is so crucial to a co-op, and really helpful if you're a small business going through a really big crisis. 86% of worker co-ops already had structures in place to make decisions in this time. You're looking at a picture of Brooklyn Packers here. Shout out to Brooklyn Packers. And they were able to make decisions more easily, make decisions together, and spread out the burden of dealing with the pandemic crisis across a big group of people instead of any one owner taking the brunt of it. So that's just a couple of little tidbits. I really encourage you to download the report and read a little bit more. You'll find also in that paper, there's some recommendations. Right now we're doing a lot of our advocacy work is trying to encourage officials at every level of government, federal, state, and local, to use co-ops as a solution for small businesses that are in crisis. We know that a lot of small businesses are going to end up closing, but you know, a lot of those were really viable before the pandemic and would really benefit from keeping that wealth in the community and selling their business to their workers. So we're looking at this as an opportunity to convert businesses, and that's been propped up by so many people, from Ro Khanna in California to Bernie Sanders to Ash Kalra in California to Helen Rosenthal in the New York City Council to our own Derek Green in Philadelphia. He's one of our council members. So there is a whole page of recommendations for the local level that, you know, we're always updating those, but that's a really good thing for you to be able to take to your local representatives and share that out with. So if you have any questions about the paper, you should feel free to reach out to me. I'll add my email in the chat. But thank you for everyone who took the time to talk with our staff. It was really helpful for us and you know, really filling of our spirits to talk with all of you. So thanks.
So I can help to do a little bit of framing and then pass it to, I think Ana Martina is going to frame the small groups. Yeah. Part of what we've been thinking about, you know, you heard a bunch of reports, the past, the present, because this year has been just so chaotic. We wanted to check in with you all. And we wanted to start that by framing, as Mo just did, you know, how did you grapple with the immediate impact of the pandemic, the recession, the shutdown, knowing that we're still in the middle of it and it's not over. And so sharing, as Mo did, that we've been privy to a lot of data and anecdotes and small conversations. You just got to hear an example of 3 of them directly from members, right? We had the opportunity to hear from hundreds of members. So some of that is aggregated in the report about, like, you all should know, like, how is the community, how is our broader community doing coast to coast? So that's what that is. The next part is we want to know what's going on now, right? Like, some of the data we have is from 4 months ago, 6 months ago. What about now? And what's on your mind now? And then framing that a little bit about also, like, what's around the corner as we look to 2021, knowing that, again, this isn't over. Ana.
Gracias, Esteban. Voy a hablar un poquito en español.
Thank you, Esteban. I'm going to talk a little bit in Spanish. Because
Okay,
Leila
thanks,
is
Esteban.
here
I've got
with
Layla
me
here, my
because
kid, so I'm kind of making sure I can deal with her, but thanks for sharing. We're going to go to small groups to answer your questions. We're going to deal with what's going on with your workers and businesses right now, and what do your co-ops need to thrive in 2021. We want to keep reflecting on this. We think it's really important to see how you've been able to respond to this, not just for COVID, but also as far as what's happened with climate change, how that's affecting our communities, and how it affects our plan as a community. I'm not going to direct people to groups, but I want to try and make sure that all the Spanish speakers stay in this room, and we're going to be able to talk together in the main room here, it seems like.
Great, and are we good to, should I open up the breakout rooms?
We're good.
Great, awesome. Esteban, are you back with us as well yet? Great.
I sure am.
Awesome, great. I'll pass it over to you.
Or is someone screen sharing?
Yes, Maddie's just getting it up.
Beautiful. Okay. I'm just echoing what Daniel was saying. I hope you had a good conversation. We wanted to transition, so we're going to capture that stuff. We didn't quite have space in a packed agenda for report backs, but thank you for spending time there. And you do have that link if you want to finish your thoughts, at least by entering them in the notes doc. That would be great. So just real quick, I know, recapping where we are and what the last year was already takes up a fair amount of space, but in an annual member meeting, it does seem important to give some sense, some little teasers about what's to come. Unfortunately, there is not a bunch of time to unpack this. So intentionally, these are intentionally teaser oblique kind of things that are like, ooh, that makes me curious and I have a million questions. It means stay tuned, stay in touch, make sure that our newsletters aren't going to your spam folder. Reach out to maybe the appropriate board or staff member who might be able to connect you with more information. Some things about what's on the horizon for us. And actually some of this is starting in Q4, the very end of 2020, moving into 2021. So first, we're in the midst of updating our theory of change and vision work, some of that governance that's internal to our board, but also across organizations together jointly with the board of the Democracy at Work Institute, and even in some smaller some ways that are informed by the member councils and other strategic partners. So that stuff is happening. That's kind of like in the background. It's not visible until it's done, and then it's visible. So we're excited to engage with y'all about that next year. Kind of starting with the pandemic, we realized this was our internal pivot plan in response to COVID, that really almost all of our training and technical assistance could be viewed through the lens of Co-op Clinic. That could be webinars, that could be supports for request, conflict mediation, right? So it's not just about the technical aspects of pivoting your business plan, understanding, tax status, figuring out how to set up different kinds of HR policies, or setting up your operating agreement for a new co-op or a conversion. So I wanted to lift that up and also lift up that we will be staffing up our technical assistance program. We're doing some strategic business planning this fall, and we're going to be hiring a full-time equivalent, I think to start January 1st, or sometime at the very, very beginning of the year. and just ramping up a lot of that work. We do a lot of informal TA. I know that a lot of you end up chatting directly with Maddie or with Kate or Ana Martina or some of the other folks on staff. And that's really where that lives.
Esteban, if you could just take a quick pause. We're hearing 2 interpreters on the line right now. So one of you, just if you could, one of you needs to stop interpreting. Thank you. You can keep going, Esteban.
Cute. Too eager. ¿Listos? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, we made a little mention of this earlier, particularly Mo, who shifted right after. I think we announced this in our summer member meeting, which was a new thing that we hadn't done before, that Mo's role is now as policy director instead of communications director. We were able to welcome Shayla to staff to focus on communications, and just without opening the whole can, there's a lot of political stuff that's changing and on the horizon. We've built so much power, and we're deep in various types of coalitions, not just legislative ones, but political ones, like those of you who were able to see our keynote with Maurice Mitchell from the Working Families Party at our national conference last month. So that's just like a hint of the kind of political work and what it looks like to move forward a whole different kind of agenda politically. So that work is deepening very, very closely with Dowie, but not exclusively with Dowie. Actually, a lot of people on the call are part of that political work. International work, not just in terms of representation, but there is new momentum building around a few different strategic areas. We are part of, I think, 4 different proposals for an international development project. Our first time doing something like this, where we would be tapping into a grant through, I should have done my homework and unpack the acronym first, but someone put in the chat what OECD stands for. Overseas Economic, I don't know. It's international organization that works really, it's headquartered in Europe, but it's about sort of multilateral economic cooperation is what they work on, and they have a new project focused on the social and solidarity economy that the Federation is part of. Some of our developer and associate member organizations within our membership are also part of a few of these proposals. For international learning, we're strengthening particular initiatives around education, around cooperative development in certain countries, like with the UK, for example. So there's more there. Ton of stuff with Japan. The International Cooperative Alliance itself is actually exploring adopting diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's their framework, not mine, into and incorporating it into the cooperative principles and amending or updating them, either as an 8th cooperative principle or as a new dimension and understanding of some of the existing ones. This was proposed actually from the US, from the credit union sector. And so we're working in coalitions to make that work move forward, which internationally is actually a very big deal when you talk about gender and patriarchy, when you talk about caste, when you talk about north-south power dynamics, right? So diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like something different internationally. Okay, we're launching a 501c4. I'm actually not going to say more about that due to time today, but similarly to our spin-off of Dowie as a C3 nonprofit organization that opened up a whole realm of work for advancing our mission, having a third partner organization, nonprofit, that can really be an avenue for capturing broader public interest in workplace democracy and sustainable economics and cooperatives, that will be set up for that. There's email blasts that are going to be going all over the place to solicit donations and grassroots funding that we will use to fuel some of the policy advocacy work, coalition work, endorsements. I would say probably get with member councils if you're interested in that kind of power flex for some of the campaigns in the world. Obviously, you've got to hear about this at our national conference, but I did want to mention that it's pretty significant that we're incubating this cooperative project, Gilded, which is the name that we came up with. We incorporated this past summer. We're in the pilot stages. It's currently piloting in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, recently expanded to Pennsylvania. This winter, we will be expanding to New York, and the 5th state, am I counting that right, is going to be California for the pilot and build out. It will eventually be national, but just so you know what's coming. In terms of regional organizing, we're looking at a fellowship model for that, re-granting some funds for people who are engaging in some of this Federation partners organizing. You know, a lot of the people in states like Maine or Colorado or Washington State don't necessarily have funding to be engaging in this work, and so that's a lift, and we want to acknowledge that. And so we're re-strategizing what it looks like to move in formation moving forward, as well as hiring in some places contract staff to do some part-time management of local state level chapters of the Federation, similar to what the Valley Alliance of Worker Cooperatives does in terms of part-time staffing. And lastly, you all have seen this hopefully on social media and our newsletters, but just that part of this growth includes the full-time equivalent staff that we're adding to our team on operations, education and training, and as I mentioned earlier, technical assistance. So we're coming close to having 15 people on staff, and part of that investment is actually making sure that growth is sustainable. Certainly with the help of Small Business Administration loans, we are able to create the positions that we know we need, but some of that is debt, and some of that is going to be contingent on the consulting work, which the Director of Education will be heading up, on some grant writing, which the Managing Director is going to be helping with, and partnerships, guidance, advice, subcontracting, hiring, whatever from you guys in helping us. I'm going to leave it at that for strategic updates. I will now open the chat so I can see what all your questions are. And I will defer to one of the co-facilitators to let me know if there's if it's appropriate to answer questions in real time or just hold that for the chat.
I think there's only one question that I saw in here, which is an easy one. Are we planning to extend the deadline to apply for the new hiring positions?
Yeah, there is no deadline. I think that there was some misinterpretation, and it today was named as a deadline. It's not actually a deadline. We're just giving preference to people who get their stuff in today. But there's no penalization for turning it in next week or in the coming weeks. It just might be that we're midway through starting to interview or scope out the next round in the process. So it is a sooner the better kind of thing. There's no ferry leaving the station moment. Hopefully you are not submitting your application, the night before we're ready to announce who we've hired. But it's definitely not too late to amplify. And intentionally, we wanted to at least have a face-to-face moment in our member meeting to share the opportunity with you all and for you to amplify in your networks. And if there's questions about that, I'm also happy to DM or to address in the full everybody chat here. Link to the jobs. Amazing, amazing. Yes, yes, yes. Great. I think we're good. Let's move on.
We're just wrapping up. Do you want to close this out, Esteban, for like the meeting part, and then we'll get into the co-op awards?
Yes, absolutely. So exactly. The transition then is we have closed out our business. Official business is over. Hooray, member meeting. The packet still lives there. You can share the info, the link with your comrades, your coworkers. For those who missed it, it eases the burden of you reporting back. As a worker owner myself, I know what that world is like. So share the login and the site to your people so they can see, especially the really colorful membership report and some of those maps and data. Definitely check out the COVID report. We are always here to answer your questions, but if anything that we surface today piques particular interest for you, just let us know. You can always if you don't know who to reach out to, you can always do info@usworker.coop. That's usually the best way to reach us. We've got a whole mobilization around the national elections, just as part of the Co-op's Vote campaign right now. We always are appreciative and seeking more sustainers. One-time donations, sustaining donations that help to fuel some of this work, because you guys, it takes a lot of work to do all of this, and it means that we are not in a good position to chase after grants at all. So we usually either don't get them or don't even apply because it is fairly labor intensive to do this. So that's why it's so critical that we have the ongoing support from your workplaces and individuals. You know, you can have your uncle, your mom, your cousin, your girlfriend, your ex-girlfriend support this and the movement, as even if they're not, you know, signed up to our newsletter and abreast of all the ins and outs of worker co-ops. So with that, we are going to transition to some recognitions and awards. So we get into the fun, and then we're going to actually close out with an incredibly short but really cute and inspiring set of videos from the candidates for our board election. You can also share the link to that with your coworkers, especially if you are the appointed rep who's going to be casting the vote, and you're like, hey, I want to be accountable to my coworkers. How are we voting in our regional elections? So I'm happy to answer questions about how the elections work, but first, let's officially adjourn the business meeting and transition over to co-op recognitions.
Yay, it's celebration time. I'm gonna hand off to Tori Cooper, one of our board directors, in just 1 second, but I wanted to give Tori and Ricardo a shout out as board members who led the effort for putting together the Co-op Awards. We had a ton of really, really great nominations this year, so it was like a really difficult to make decisions, but I'm super excited to get into the awards. So take it away, Tori.
All right, thank you. So Hillary Johnson will be joining me as my Co-op Award co-presenter. So thank you, Hillary, for joining me. For one, I want to thank Mo so much for all of the work she put into putting this process together, and to just reiterate that it was extraordinary reading through the list of nominees and just seeing so much energy and activity and ambition happening across our sector right now. It was unbelievable. So without further ado, I am going to celebrate with you the Co-op of the Year Awards. Our first one is the Health Justice Champion Award, which goes to Action Ocean, New York City. We are so excited to recognize them for their work as an immigrant worker co-op focused on occupational health and safety in New York City, which is no small feat this year. They conducted many trainings tirelessly with cleaning co-ops and other businesses to ensure the safety of frontline workers. So congratulations, Action Osh.
Yay!
Yay!
I am presenting the award for Emerging Worker Cooperative to Chai Fresh Kitchen in Illinois. A new member of the Worker Co-op Federation, Chai Fresh Kitchen is part of a collaboration of urban farms, food operators, worker centers, policy advocates, and other community organizations led by people of color on the south and west sides of Chicago, who are coming together to promote food sovereignty, racial justice, and equitable food access in the city. During COVID-19, Chai Fresh Kitchen has been partnering with Urban Growers Collective to meet emergency food needs caused by the pandemic. Congratulations, Chai Fresh!
Yay!
Everyone show your love in the chat. Loving all the love in the chat.
Love it.
Amazing. Okay, the next one holds a very special place in my heart. They are the Champion Advocate Awards. As a having been a worker co-op, a worker owner, a mom, and a childcare provider, have so much respect for Child Space. Let's hear it for Child Space. Child Space Daycare Centers has for decades engaged in frontline work in the childcare industry, not only to create and maintain their multi-location cooperative, but to also advocate for childcare workers and businesses throughout the state of Pennsylvania. Their dedication is relentless, and most recently, Child Space is participating in the Start Strong statewide campaign, which is sending targeted messages each week about what childcare programs need to be able to survive and reopen safely to serve our families and raise our babies. Congratulations, Child Space.
Woo!
Yay!
Really represent.
And in special recognition, the Special Recognition Prize, we must also recognize the Principle 6 collaboration of 3 members, Opportunity Threads, Cooperative Home Care Associates, and the Industrial Commons. They're creating and providing PPE to healthcare workers during COVID-19. This initiative, conducted as the Carolina Textile District, exemplifies the power of cooperation and how localized, sustainable supply chains safeguard our health and our livelihoods. This pandemic reminds us that the future is ours to shape. As of May 2020, the Carolina Textile District has produced 179,230 units of masks and gowns with the participation of 60 manufacturers, and continues to produce 40,000 units on a weekly basis. These products serve essential workers and community members in our region, in North Carolina and beyond. Thank you for your work, Opportunity Threads, Cooperative Home Care Associates, the Industrial Commons, and the whole Carolina Textile District.
Y'all, our co-ops are literally giving us life right now. I would now like to recognize an individual emerging leader in a conversion award. And this one goes to Claire Fullman at Orca Books in Washington. So, okay, y'all saddle up for the story. Claire is the president of Orca Books Cooperative, a Federation member conversion solidarity co-op in Olympia, Washington. She joined the co-op last September prior to the conversion, stepped into the role of president in February, did an amazing, quick, deep dive into worker co-ops, and led the co-op staff and board to finalize the conversion on April 1st, 2020, during a stay-at-home order, and then led the staff in planning to move a 5,000 square foot bookstore into a new 4,000 square foot place. That sounds tricky. Negotiated with the 2 different landlords, led the hiring and onboarding for 3 new staff collective members, and helped navigate the role of a community bookstore located 1 block from police headquarters during BLM protests. How do you do it, Claire? Also worked to secure EIDL and PPP loans, without which the co-op would have failed. Without someone like Claire's leadership skills and commitment to cooperation and a willingness to step into the leadership role, it is doubtful that Orca Books Co-op would be getting to reopen. Oh my gosh, congratulations, Claire. Good work.
Yay!
Yay! Also, another recognition we're making is the Advocacy Torchbearer Award to Kirk Vartan from A Slice of New York in California. Kirk has been an advocacy machine this year, pushing local government education in San Jose and making the connections for our federation to write a federal worker co-op development bill currently in the works with Representative Ro Khanna's office. We're so glad he's on our side. Kirk is relentless when it comes to moving our policy work forward, showcasing the convergence opportunity to policymakers. Additionally, he has been a key worker owner of Worker Co-op Federation member A Slice of New York, a pizza shop with 2 locations in California, starting as one of the original business owners and shepherding the conversion of the business to a cooperative. Kirk has worked to ensure the safety and well-being of not just his fellow owners at A Slice of New York, but also his community, helping to run a grassroots collaboration of community organizers and small business leaders focused on providing nutritious meals for hospital ER teams and at-risk families. Congratulations, Kirk. Yay. Mo, are you going to read your note about that?
Oh, yeah, so I was texting with Kirk earlier today and he wanted to be here, but A Slice of New York is currently dealing with a really big plumbing issue. So I just want to encourage everybody to send all of the positive energy because I know you all know what it's like to have plumbing issues. So yeah, so just join us in celebrating Kirk and send him all the positive vibes.
Y'all having to miss an award ceremony to deal with your plumbing is like the most worker ownery thing I've ever heard. So sending all the love to Kirk and Slice of New York. I would like to take a moment to recognize the award for Cross-Sector Champion, and that is going to Gregory Jackson at the East Bay Permanent Real Estate Cooperative in California. Greg is one of the most visionary, creative, and resourceful people ever, and has seeded so many projects locally and internationally that will continue to transform communities and inspire people everywhere. Gregory has poured his passion for Black liberation and economic democracy throughout his work in communities across San Francisco, East Bay, and the country. He is innovated and pivoted his work to meet the needs of stakeholders looking to learn more about and develop their own cooperative enterprises, both locally and nationally. And as the country wakes up to the movement for Black Lives Matter, Repaired Nations, his fiscally sponsored project at the Sustainable Economies Law Center, is doing some of the most profound reparative work in the US, developing transnational alliances for Black cooperative economics as seen through their Year of Return Cooperative Conference in Ghana. Congratulations, Gregory. Yes. I'm now going to pass it to Esteban.
That's right, you are. And thank you and congratulations to everyone for those awards. The final recognition we have is different. It's different than just a regular annual award. And it's a recognition of contribution and achievement in helping to build up the Worker Co-op Federation itself. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, we want to give some love to our own Laura Smoot. Smoot wrapped up her time with the Federation earlier this year and actually left staff at the end of last year after several years, helping to really just build up our operations. You all know this because you all are running workplaces and businesses. We don't take operations lightly. We don't take them for granted. And those of you who've either converted or started up and launched your own businesses or branched out and started new locations know what it's like to just have to build stuff up either from scratch or from a messy pile. That's what Smoot's work was when she started. She actually was filling in for her best friend, Foresta, who had stepped away for parental leave and was just a part-time contractor. Smoot took over as a part-time contractor and over the years just invested so much of her talent and her systems thinking and a fair amount of on-the-job training for some of the bookkeeping stuff. And took her time really as a worker owner from many different workplaces, having seen how systems worked at her time in a worker-owned grocery store here in Philly, her time with a catering business in the Bay Area, her time with so many different organizations and then bringing that here to the Federation. We are now in a stronger place. I mean, everything from some of the pie charts you saw, our invoicing systems, even before she was around to benefit from this, recommending some of our new systems for payroll processing and cash flow, just all the things. Really, the board probably sees this more than the rest of staff even. But I think we'd be remiss without having a moment to just recognize her talent and contributions, not just internally to the Federation, but really embedded in our ecosystems. She's been someone who's led a lot of workshops and made financial literacy accessible. And now is, a freelance bookkeeper supporting many of your workplaces, including at the Sustainable Economies Law Center. So much love to Laura Smoot and all that she's brought to us. Hooray.
Yay, Smoot! So that's it for our Co-op and Cooperator of the Year recognitions, folks. So the one last thing that we have is our little playlist of the candidates for your regional representatives for the board. Shayla is adding in the links to like the full candidate statements. And I'm going to we're gonna have Maddie actually like play the videos for you all right now, but
prior to that, just so that people know what they're listening for,
yeah.
Should I explain a little bit, or does someone else want to, maybe Ana Martina, explain a little bit about the caucusing that happens, the regional caucuses, and how that works? Yeah, maybe your daughter wants to explain it.
She's currently like taking apart my my phone stand, so reclaiming her Legos. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, what we are gonna be seeing is like the personal statements of folks that are running to the board. This is a regional election, and yeah, I mean, I think that, if folks need to get access to their voting codes, just like feel free to email me, because we send those ones. And, I don't want to take too much time, because I think people should just listen to the amazing, like, statements and proposals that folks are running for the board this year.
Great. And if you have questions about it, feel free to email your regional rep. Nope, that doesn't make sense because some of them are running. You can email anyone from our nominations committee or our staff, and we can explain a bit about how the caucuses work. Some of you I know are located in multiple regions, which can be confusing. I know that's true for my co-op. So we can clear all that stuff up one-on-one with you if you have questions about it. What you'll see when you get it is a word bank of all the possible candidates, and you will drag them into your order of preference. So you rank them, you can move them around before you sort of click finalize and click submit. Once you do that, it will be zhuzhed into our system. We do instant transferable, single transferable, instant runoff, ranked choice voting. So that's how that works within that caucus. All right, now without further ado, we were going to hear from our 2020 candidates for regional reps.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Jones from CoLab Cooperative. I have nominated myself to be a member of the board of the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives as a representative of the Eastern region of the United States. I'm deeply committed to the cooperative movement because I believe that worker ownership is an important and achievable tactic for dismantling the oppression of laborers and employees by an owning class. My vision of a just and sustainable future is one of economic justice and empowerment for workers, democratic workplaces that are instilled with diversity and equality, and a high quality of life for all people and their families and communities. I have a history of serving and working in cooperatives, including as the president of a biodiesel cooperative in Ithaca, as a co-founder of a housing cooperative in which I still reside, and as a worker with CoLab Cooperative. I recently went through a cooperative developer training with the Center for Family Life in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm excited to continue supporting others who are invested in worker ownership. I get a lot of joy out of collaborating and networking with other people invested in the movement. I love traveling to and attending conferences and other professional development opportunities. As a woman and a mother and someone of biracial heritage, I feel that I can be a unique voice representing cooperatives for this region and for others as a member of the USFWC board. Thank you for your support.
Okay.
Boom. Hi, my name is Ricardo Nunez. I work at the Sustainable Economies Law Center, and I'm the Director of Economic Democracy there. And I've been working at the Law Center for about 7.5 years now. And over that time, I've seen the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives play a pivotal role in developing the national ecosystem to support the transition towards democratic worker ownership and worker cooperatives and democratic workplaces. And so the reason I'm running for the board again as your Western regional representative is because I see the U.S. Federation as, or my role in the U.S. Federation is to make sure that the work that the Federation is doing is aligning with the values and the needs and the goals of our worker cooperative businesses, our democratic nonprofit workplaces, and also the worker members that are really the soul of the Federation. And so part of my hope in being elected again is to continue that work with the amazing, beautiful people who are on the board and staff of the Federation, and as well to continue connecting and building those critical connections, both in the West, but also nationally, so that we can learn from each other, especially in a time with so much turbulence and grief. And so creating spaces and resource sharing where we can actually acknowledge the immensity of what's happening right now and not and understand that we are doing this together. And yeah, and that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. So let's not forget that, and let's make this future of work just and democratic. Thanks. Boom.
As we all know, worker co-ops are important now more than ever to strengthen our own lives and communities. My name is Esther J. West, and I am excited to run for the board of the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops and to represent you, the worker owners of the Northern region. It means much to run with the support of the diligent worker owners of MadWork here in Madison, Wisconsin. Currently, I'm a co-op development specialist at the University of Wisconsin Center for Co-ops, where I work with co-ops starting up and do research like on Latinx co-op power. I grew up in Cincinnati in a family of community organizers and worker ownership, and was a worker owner myself for several years at Equal Exchange, and a previous co-facilitator of the Eastern Conference for Workplace Democracy. I am a Chicana myself, and I have been so excited to see the anti-racist and vocal activity of the U.S. Federation in their developing ties to broader social movements such as the Movement for Black Lives and having mutual aid co-op hours. Worker owners are all about concretely building the world we want to be part of, and I want to thoughtfully and creatively support this work as a board member. I believe in the power of worker owners leading our own movements, such as through worker owner associations. If elected as your representative, I will do my best to gather and listen to your voices and bring that back to the Federation. I'll promote our interests so that we have services with our needs incorporated, like around healthcare, and gather and listen to stories and share those to the best of my ability. I also know that the co-op model is a tool and that we need to continually work to unpack and deter racist and sexist activity, even within our own co-ops. I'm here to support worker owners experiencing these issues and want to build supportive networks. It would mean so much to work with and continually strengthen the incredible work of the U.S. Federation and in turn your work. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Hola, soy Araceli Domínguez, miembro fundador de la Staten Island, Nueva York, llamada Braille por Richmond. Braille por Richmond es parte de la plataforma digital Apengo, un sitio web. Soy parte de la junta directiva de la primera franquicia de cooperativas llamada Coopportunity. Mi interés por postularme el día de hoy a la federación empezó y comenzó a partir de involucrarme en este movimiento cooperativista y creció aún más en estos tiempos difíciles de pandemia y entendí la importancia de crear lazos, redes, alianzas y generar oportunidades donde nosotros los trabajadores dueños esenciales fuimos expuestos y excluidos sin beneficios y oportunidades. Pienso que es importante y necesario que seamos escuchados, compartiendo las experiencias que vivimos en carne propia y mostrar nuestros cambios y transformaciones que tuvimos, tenemos y tendremos en nuestros negocios para crear dignidad en el trabajo y en nuestras vidas, en toda la nación cooperativista. Gracias y espero su apoyo.
Hi, I'm Molly. I use she, her, and hers, and I'd like to join the leadership of the U.S. Federation of Worker-Owned Cooperatives because I believe I can contribute years of experience within a successful cooperative combined with experience and passion for organizing. It is my personal and professional commitment to always move towards equity, and it drives most of the decisions in my life. And I would really love to find a way to take that experience and those passions and contribute them to supporting the cooperatives on a national level while also learning and engaging with new tactics and skills.
That's it, folks. Thank you so much. Big ups to all of the candidates. I think we don't have a video for Anna Boyer in here, but you can find their information on our website. Esteban, you want to take us home?
Sure. I think that's it. Definitely hit us up if you have questions about the election or any of our programs. Hopefully you are subscribed on whichever your preferred social media platform is, although we are not on TikTok. I don't think we're gonna do that. Tori, I see you making faces, girl. What else? I think that's it. You know what? The last thing that I want to say that does feel a little more membership meeting-ish and less of our celebratory closeout is just, I'm really struck. We were talking about this in our breakout rooms. I'm really struck by how many businesses were thrown a lifeline with the PPP loans and some with EIDL, and how actually Mo, like your presence, being able to be there in lockstep with our political coalition on the Hill is what enabled tens of millions of dollars to flow into the cooperative ecosystem. I mean, we were otherwise barred from that. And I think that that's like a close call, but also something to celebrate, that having the organized structure of being there as a federation, we were able to at least have them roll back to an extent some of the restrictions that barred not just our members but all cooperatives from accessing those loans. And it meant that millions of dollars flowed into these businesses, and then look what you all did with them. You're able to like hire people back, stay employed, keep your family insured. Like all of this stuff is just such a big deal, and that's exactly the kind of behavior for how we're going to get through all this. So I'm sad that we're not in person, but it is really heartening to me and inspiring to be able to see you all today, and to be able to celebrate your leadership and all the brilliant ways that you were able to innovate through this crisis. So thank you all each other is all we have, you know, like that's why we're in co-ops. So thanks for showing up today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hi, everybody.
Hasta pronto. Cuídense.
I'm dropping a link to the wine cooperative in the chat if anyone wants to stick around for it.